Mm. You are live. Yes, we are live. I mean, we are Huang, and
Heiko, and we are the Essence of Truth podcast.
which is all about the freedom and happiness that everybody wants, but you don't know how to get.
That's exactly right. And today we will want to tackle the happiness that we usually experience when we go to some kinds of events, right? Whether that's Tony Robbins events, Joe Dispenza, whoever. But if you've ever been to any of those events, you know, like you're getting into a peak state, you're getting to amazing highs where you have the adrenaline, the dopamine, you're just feeling great and you're getting insights, you're getting breakthroughs. But after the event, usually there can be a drop, and you try to do your best, right? And the thing with peak state that I've noticed is that it can become almost like a performance mode where you're using it to be confident, to be focused, to perform a certain level or to come across a certain way, but it doesn't necessarily reflect the deep inner work, and it can often conceal what's actually going on inside. And so we're going to dive deep into these things and to different things that can happen after those events. And so wherever and whatever kind of category you fall into, you're definitely going to get something out of this, because we also want to share actionable steps and other things. And so, Huang, I think you had this wonderful reference that I don't want to steal from you here. So why don't you take over? You're muted.
Oh my God, I was muted myself, and I totally forgot about it. Well, there is something that yeah, where should I start? You know, sometimes we kind of well, for me, this is me being vulnerable here. So I remember back in the time when I was still studying laboratoria, and also before that, I pretended to always be happy, because that is how it's supposed to be. Always be happy, and always in peak state, right? And but inside, I was kind of well, I was not happy. And Much later, and of course that caused me a broken mind and body afterward, because it's long terms. Is remember the difference between pretending, right, and which what I did, and really, really doing the deep work that we're diving deep into. So one of the story, I remember Robin Williams. I think it was one of the most high energy performers, from the world, that the world has ever seen. And right now I'm reading the note that I took here. So he really changing the room that he's in. He lighting up people with his humor, right? And which is also something that I did. I want people to smile, to laugh. I never want people to, uh, well, seeing the other part of me. And yeah, but beneath that, right under that, he really struggled with depression, loneliness, and addiction. Well, luckily, I was struggling with loneliness, and I struggling with other things, and depression, but I didn't know about it, and I did not struggle with addiction. um, and his humor was a shield to avoid facing deep emotional wounds or work. And um, People see him just as a part when he is very happy, very joyful, but didn't know about the other part until it's too late for him, right? And we know what happens. It's a tragedy. And I think he was in America, so he's a national treasure, and America has lost a very very big treasure in that way, right? So that is very dangerous. And for me, it was a broken mind and body. I stay in there, avoiding the deep work for a long time, and well, and that was the cost, my cost. And for Robin Williams, it was his cost. And how many of us out there are facing the same thing, or has faced the same thing? and was not, I would say, lucky enough or blessed enough to have the supportive system to help us overcome those things, to help us at least facing those things, right? And we all have, up and down moments. But in those down moments, we can also find a way to navigate and really diving deep into instead of pushing it away, which I did in the past. And yeah, so the big lesson in it for me, it was to it took me literally like 14 years, like a very very long time to work through all of those things, and it is a long process, and at the same time it's also very rewarding. We know more, we accept it more, we feel more balance. And for me it was through breathwork movement and a philosophy that I follow, right, that allow me to accept many things. And I bet many of the people around the world, right, also find their way. And and yeah, and for those that haven't found that yet, know that they are there, right? So yeah, those kind of some of the notes I take, and the story about Robin Williams, which resonated deeply with me because I experienced something similar in a different way.
Yeah, first of thank you so much for sharing that, and for being so vulnerable for yourself. Because first of all, I think Robin Williams is an amazing example for this. Because I mean, he was a peak performer. He got into all kinds of states that he wanted, like on command, literally taking so many roles, and really embody them, right? Like really on a high level. So great example. But of course, not all of us are Robin Williams who have these capabilities. But I love how you brought it into your own life and what you experienced and the price you had to pay for that. And I want to thank you for that because it brought me back to my life where I remember when I got into all this, doing the getting like learning how to get into peak state, especially from Tony Robbins and going to all these events. Like to me, this became an obsession. Where before I was this shy thing, I was depressed for a long time, and like to me, this was like this revelation. Like now I got the key to break out of it, and to go into peak state to thrive. And so I went to all kinds of events, Tony Robbins and others, like 12, 13 events. I don't know by now anymore, but every time, you just reach another level. You have more breakthroughs. Everything came, and so to me, it kind of became, and I wasn't aware of that. It became a mask where, like, anytime I'm feeling low, something happens, and I'm just putting myself into peak state, doing something, but it always something triggered me. Somebody said something, did something, and all of a sudden I'm feeling weird. Until one day I remember I stopped, and it's like I know exactly what to do to get me into peak state, but on that particular day, I didn't want to. I didn't want to get into peak state. And I was like, I wanted to explore why is this always coming up? Like if I'm doing this continuously, like I should condition it, right? It should be my normal. Why is this always coming back? And this then opened a new gateway for me, so to speak, where I've realized that yes, I could use this, but it became like a performance mode, right? I used it to get myself into state to finish something, to do something, to come across a certain kind of way. But there were still so many things internally that I avoided. And it became a coping mechanism for me to avoid those things. And so thanks to all the work that I did, I then invested in a healer, like a coach that helped me through all those things that I didn't address. And I didn't even know how to, right? Like, what's coming out. And so I'm so grateful for this because as I did this work, there were so many things. Like I was blown away by things that were popping up, things I consciously didn't even know they were there anymore. I didn't even remember those events that came up, that they actually happened to me. They did happen to me, but I completely, like in my mind, I sealed them somewhere behind 200 doors, right? And so all of this came up, and I got to process this. And I remember, especially after one particular session, I felt reborn. Like I literally opened my eyes, and it was like I'm looking out of different eyes. It's just like as if I'm in a different body, and everything's changed. And there was this liberation that came from that. And my natural baseline state was elevated by 3 levels minimum just because of that. And I never had to went back down to like something happens and all of a sudden I'm having these feelings coming up, these anxieties or this, this frustration, this almost heaviness like a depression didn't came up anymore. And it made me realize where there's more to this than just, making yourself getting to a state. And I'm curious actually if you had experiences like that as well.
Now that you share that, I remember when, before that, that was like I pretended to be happy and I have the big state, always smiling and helping and wanting others to be, well, to keep smiling as well, right? And it was out of, when you have the thing, but then you lack the substance itself, the substance for yourself. And then you are vulnerable. And when I say you, I mean like me, right until when I'm walking toward a path of I call it self-discovery journey, right? That is when I slowly building up, literally from the ground up, when everything broken inside of me. That was how I felt. And it's by brick, as I slowly facing those truth or those fear within myself, I recognize, the next time it gets better. I'm not as fearful, right? Or the emotion, it does not hit me as much. And then next time it's the same thing. Just like kind of practicing, martial arts, which what I love to do, martial arts and Tai Chi, it's the same thing, right? The first time is harder, and then the next time is less hard, and then the next time is even less hard, and so on. So the things that people tell me, it's or share, or the life that I face, it's not that hard anymore. I could then go, and this may be very, like very normal for other people, but I remember when I walk outside the street, right, I couldn't even look at people's eyes. I couldn't look at people's eye. I couldn't make a choice, right? Left or right, what could I make without that anxiety, right? Without that fear and anxiety and so much panic. But later on, I can look at people's eyes, right? And smiling and feels comfortable doing that. So those are the ground up and slowly is building up further with, like when people say, like, no, when you ask for help, no, okay, sure. In the past, it was so much more anxiety and anxious. So, it's literally a house, a house that we see outside, when people building up. It was for me, the house internally. It was my soul or my own self that is slowly building up further. So that is the inner work, through my own philosophy and through literally, I mean, like so many aspects of life, right? Tony Robbins play a very, very big part in my journey as well, and among other people. So very, very grateful for the chance and opportunity to able to experience those things. So yeah, guys, um, not only the peak state is important, but also what you do after, right? What is it that you do facing? And you're gonna growing stronger or weaker? And I think one of the people that really worth mentioning, it was Nick Vujicic. It was when he shared about, I see him on a YouTube video, and it hasn't given me a lot of strength and motivation to push through, which is that was the guy that have no arm and no legs. And he asking, it's matter not how you started, but it's matter how you finish. Are you gonna finish strong? And it touched me deeply. um, so yeah, are you gonna finish strong? Just to stealing his yeah, his quote over there.
I love that you shared that, and thank you for being so open and so vulnerable today. Because I can again, it really helps me to really relate to what you're going through, and it reminds me also, especially what you shared at the end, where like after the event, I often noticed there's this drop, like not just the me, but there's this drop and in state and everything, right? Where you're going back to your old life, and you notice, you maybe have changed. Maybe you coming back with more energy, you articulating differently, you expressing yourself differently. But then and I had this several times where people in my life were like, or what are you like? Are are you Superman now? Or like, what's going on? Like, why are you talking like this? Why are you gesturing like this? And so I'm like, oh, okay. And then so slowly, step by step, I basically went back to where I was before. And over the years, I made so many connections to others, and there seems to be a pattern where, like, after these events, and no matter what kind of events, there's this huge drop. And like, yes, you're taking some part out of the event, but like, it's far beyond from what you actually experienced. And then one thing I want to highlight with this is it's not the event, right? I know, like, I've heard several like blaming those events, but I really reflected on that, and I can't agree with that, because on every event I went to, from any kind of expert, like, they do their best to really give you the immersion, to give you the conditioning. They even prepare you for, like, this is going to happen after the event. But still, like, what I've noticed is it's up to you what you're making after this. And I noticed this for myself, because after the first one, felt great, did a couple of things for like maybe a week or two, but then fell back into old patterns, especially with the environment, as I said, that I was in. It kind of almost felt like they were dragging me back. But then I realized now I can't blame them for this. This is me, right? I take responsibility. It's up to me if I let myself being dragged back, or if I'm getting triggered or something like that. So I have to do more work, which is also one of the reasons why I got into the healing work and invested in so many other coaches since then, to help me with different specific parts of that. And one thing I also, coming back to what you just shared about yourself, is I find, as you said, like, when you were able to really, look the other person in the eyes, is when you do this work, you get to connect on such a more deeper level than before. And you get to, especially, this is something that I noticed when I work with other people, with my clients, where, like, you get to go really deep with them because you have been in there. Right? It's not just you're looking from above down, hey, maybe you should try this. No, you have been in there. You can meet them there and show them the way out. And this is where such a difference is. And this is where, like, even just as you said, like, it starts with being able to look them in the eye, being able to really listen, asking the right questions to help them understand what's actually going on. Because there's also one thing that I've noticed in myself and that I saw in others, where oftentimes you don't know. Right? I'm feeling this, I'm not sure why, and you need a bit of help to figure out what is actually happening. Why do you have this drop? Why do you always coming back to this? It happened to me all the time. But it's no one else's fault but mine. I need to do the work, and I did the work. And then I got the whole liberation. Then I got the lasting change that I was after. And so there's no... every event I went to, from every expert, I loved it. Right? There's so many breakthroughs, so much knowledge. There's the immersion. They do their best to provide you with, in this time frame, with so many things, but it's up to you what you're making out of this. And I know, especially, when I'm reflecting or when I'm looking back into my notes, there are so many things that I didn't apply. There are so many things that I just completely forgot. And so, whose fault is that? Only I'm to blame. And so, also, I'm using the word blame, cautious here, because I'm not about beating yourself up. I'm about taking ownership, responsibility. So when I'm recognizing, I haven't applied this, so okay, maybe it's time for it. And of course, you can't apply, usually, especially when you go to Tony events, there's so much, you can't apply everything. And so, same, it was up to me to make a plan. Okay, what do I want to apply? What's the most important thing for me now? And when do I introduce the next thing? And then coming back and using this, right? So the whole entire process is completely up to me. And this is one thing I really want to highlight here, where, we're talking about the dark side of the peak state and something like that, but it's what you make out of this. And maybe your experience is different. Maybe you were like me. You were using all the tools to get into peak state, and everything worked well for you. Amazing. I'm not saying that there's always has to be a dark side. But if you're the kind of person where you're experiencing the drop, or you can't get back to it, or things are happening and something is dragging you down, dragging to you the past, you're getting triggered, whatever that might be for you, then this is something where you need to dive deeper into. Because one thing we all have to also realize is like in those events, this is a one-to-many approach, right? There's this, it's for the masses, not particularly for you. If there's an intervention, maybe there's a one-on-one. And yes, of course, you can pick your nuggets that fit to your situation with that. But it's always different when you really have this one-to-one connection with someone. This is so much deeper, so much just the specificity to your life, to your situation, your background, your story. Nobody is like you. There are patterns. Yes, patterns are tremendous when you learn to understand and utilize them. But it's always coming back to you. And this is really what I want to highlight. This is not to blame any event, any expert or whatever. This is really just coming down to how you're utilizing this. And I'm telling you this because I went this path for so many years now. And as you said, for you, it was 14 years, right? I'm not sure how many years it was for me because there were different kind of stages in which I focused on different kind of things. At the beginning, most important for me was just to overcome my autoimmune disease. So there were different levels for me in this process, but still, no matter what it was about, I had to take responsibility for it. I had to be consistent. I had to level up. I had to also check in with myself. Hey, where am I now? Am I still in this level? Do I need to go somewhere else? And so this is something that I definitely want to give to you, where no matter, I mean, we just had this Time to Rise Summit, right? Was the name. So, and I mean, by now, maybe you're already experiencing the dip from that. So completely cool. There's nothing wrong with you. There's nothing wrong with the event or anything like that. It's just, you just need to check in. Okay, where am I at now? What do I need now at where I'm at to move further, to get back into the state if I need to? Or what is something there? What is a trigger, trauma, whatever that might be, something that you need to resolve in order to elevate your baseline, to be liberated from whatever is creating this heaviness, this almost like, for me, it was almost like a little prison I put myself into. This is what it comes down to. And to me, this only happened by slowing down and creating the space for myself to face it. And then looking for help for someone who can help me with that. Because otherwise, I didn't want to spend another couple of years trying to figure it out by myself. I did it with my autoimmune disease. Took me 15 years. And after that, when I started investing with others, I realized I could have done the same thing in a couple of months. And so I just wanted to make sure that you guys understand this part. And Huang, what are your insights and thoughts about this?
When you were sharing that, you know, it reminds me of some thought comes up, right? And and I'm talking like a broken record right now in this way. Remember, it's a journey, right? It's matter not how you started, and but it's matter how you finish, and whatever project that you're on, that you're finishing, right? Are you gonna finish strong? Because you could do that. You know, and I know that for me, a very big part in my life, hope, faith, conviction has been very, very important. And where do I find those things, right? It giving me the energy, it giving me the belief, it giving me the the perseverance to move further, to not not stay there for too long, and knowing that it's just a journey, it's just a phase, and you can get there. It's really, really important. So whenever you drop down, right, are you going to get back up, right? And that is also something that Nick Forget use, getting back up again and again, and it's a part of the journey. And until until you you don't need to fall down that often anymore, right? And you don't need to get back up that often anymore. Right, that is when you, I mean, hey, when you just learn to walk, or you just learn standing up as a baby, hey, what happens when you're learning that? Don't you fall down a lot? Well, I could imagine that I did fall down a lot. And what about the first time, like after standing, after that, first time walking, right? And the first time running, right? Because after walking, it's come running, and then using the bicycle. So you see, it's all about the journey and how you're gonna finish, and finishing strong, which means you gain the capability that you don't need to fall as often as when you're just learning to stand, right? That you gain the capability to be able to run and not fall as often, right? When you running. And the same thing for the bicycle, hell, and every other things. The car, the motorbike. I know it was literally such a horror show for me to learn the car, which is very strange, by the way. And I made it. I remember my teacher told me to this, this is kind of embarrassing, but my teacher, the driver teacher, he told me to, yeah, why don't you get an electric car, right? In that way, you don't need to learn the other thing. It goes faster for you. And I didn't like that. And I don't know if you know that, but I did not like that. So no, I decided to, no, I'm going to learn until I get there. So that is one of the way that I believe it's called finish strong, because you don't give up. You're pushing through, you find a different way. And now I am so proud that I could do those things, could do those things that in the past I couldn't even imagine. How do I even do that? Like, what all those steps. So yeah, how many more journey in your life that you already been through, right? And you has already finishing strong right now, and how many more are you willing to finish strong, I would say.
Yeah, beautifully said. And like, I'm proud of you as well. Like, I mean, he literally told you, hey, why don't you take the easy route? And I know I want to learn this. I think this is a very great character trait to really wanting to figure it out. And this is, I think, something that, I mean, totally resonates with me. And this is something I find gives so much more depth into everything else you do. Like when I'm thinking about, and just taking your example as with driving now, where when I first moved to New Zealand, and then all of a sudden, I learned to drive on the right side, and then just driving on the left side is completely weird. I mean, you're basically using the car the same way, but just that little shift can change the entire feeling right away. But I find if I hadn't had the time before to learn to do this and taking time to master driving on the right side, I might have never had the confidence to try it on the other side. And so I did and took my time. And actually, I started right in the middle of the capital. So, where the worst traffic is, this is where I started. But like, still, like, it builds you up. And to me, it's like all of these experiences you can bring into something else, right? You're building references, you're building confidence that you can then apply in other ways. And this to me is like where you're building a foundation where peak state is great, you can put yourself in there, but leveling up your baseline to me is actually more important, because at the end of the day, when something happens, when you're getting in a really stressful thing, really stressful out of the blue situations happening, you falling back to your baseline, to the level of where you train yourself, where you're consistent. And so by having those things, having those experiences, I find, coming basically back to resilience. You're so much more resilient. And I've noticed it for myself. At the beginning, I would panic if something unexpected come up, and like by now, something's like, okay, let's figure it out, right? I've figured out so many other things before that I thought would be impossible. So I can do this too. Maybe I can ask someone or whatever. And just by being calmer, I automatically see more options. Where before I'm like, shit. Either I didn't see any option or I saw one. And it's all just coming down to, as you said, it's the journey. And so for anyone watching this and who maybe you just did your first event, or maybe already did 10 or more like before, but you find yourself struggling, that's okay. It's the human condition, right? We are learning along the way. And with each step along the way, you're getting more insights. You learn more about yourself. And to me, the most important thing is always taking the time to reflect, to do the inner work, right? The emotional work to level up the baseline. And as you know, even as Wang said, even if there's an easier route, maybe consciously choosing the other one if it leads to a deep understanding, to a higher skill level that you maybe can then apply in other areas. And so to me, this is where it all comes down to, right? It's different from just putting the mask on. Yeah, I'm pixelated now. I'm confident now. Boom, doing my performance, or really creating this identity of putting. And this comes just from experience, where you were literally putting yourself into different things, different experiences. And I'm so grateful that I went on this journey now for like 9 years of traveling to all these different countries, talking to so many different people from different cultures, right? Trying to understand, or to even sometimes words don't work, so you need to do body language, or trying all different kinds of jobs, getting into doing the deep work, and all these kind of every little experiences that I made helped me somewhere along the way. Like even just my job back then, before I left Germany, I hated to be a baker. And literally, like, I wish I never learned this thing. Later along the journey, this gave me the opportunity to get sponsorship, to stay longer in the country, to have more possibilities to explore the country, the culture, to live there, to see how it is to actually live in a completely different environment. And that wouldn't have been possible if I wouldn't have done this before. And so sometimes you don't know the things that you did, where you can apply them somewhere later in your life. And to me, between when I quit in Germany, when I stopped being a baker, to actually being able to use it, there was several years of a gap in between. And this happened for so many other things as well. And I'm pretty sure, like Juan, you probably had similar experiences like that, where something that maybe you thought, you never need that, or maybe you wish you wouldn't have done this, but later maybe it's like, hey, wait a minute, actually I'm glad I did this because now I get to do this.
Man, I really love that you share that part because I mean, literally when you're sharing that, there's a quote that come up to mind. I used to be a poet, by the way, so I love quotes. I love those philosophy and beautiful thing. So the quote state, ah, from Steve Jobs, one of my superhero. It state, you cannot connect the dot um, forward. You can only connect the dot backward. And so it's so important. This is a speech I gave when I was at Harvard, I think that was Harvard University, not sure anymore. um, so it's so important to do something that you love, right? Because when you do what you love, it's gonna give you that energy, it's gonna give you that driving force, it's gonna give you that perseverance to push through challenges and hardship in life. And we don't know when they're gonna come, right? And and when at the end of it, and this is my part because I forgot the rest of what he say. uh, and so so connecting the dot backward for me, after my mind and body broke down, I went into training, the physical side, facing my fear. Man, when I faced my fear of talking with people, doing things, it was not something that I like, right? I mean, who would like to be tortured, right? And in those moments, I was torturing myself because in interaction with people, it is when I feel so much of those anxiety. And I'm not sure which one of you guys love to feel anxiety and feel so much fearful and suffering afterward because of our own, because of uh, my own internal part, right? And those were not the moment I like, but much later, the things that I could do now more, it's so much more, and they all connected. I could ask people, I could talk with people, right? I could show vision to people, right? I can also, because through all those experience that I experienced, right? Parkour, free running, like stepping up to yes, I got a dating coach in the past as well. Stepping to a girl, feeling as if I'm, like watering in my pants. I did not do that, right? But it feels like that. And just say hello, I like you, right? Or jumping from one building to another, all of those things, they build up, right? They show to myself and also show to other people what's possible. Because right now I have experience that I could relate to. Hey, I was able to do that, right? So right now, what I'm facing right now, what's going on, right? It's not that I lack the courage, because I don't lack that at all. I would have died many times over, uh, right? And it's not I lack courage. So what else do I, what is it? And so on. I could relate, right? And I can pinpoint so much better what is missing and what has I achieved to help me move further. I have references, and in terms, it's also inspire others as well. Hey, I mean, that guy, if even he can do it, I mean, like, of course I could do it as well. And inspiration, and I forgot the other word, inspiration and references point for myself, inspiration for others. So yeah, those are some of the moments, a short story about something that I did not like to do, or like hate to do, but pushing through and do it, just like yeah, just like you share. So I love that.
Thank you so much for that, because it really brings down to me, this is where the essence of truth is coming in, where you're, and you said it beautifully, you're building yourself up. You do the things that are scary. You do the things that you don't want to do. And there's actually a part of your brain that is being activated, and that grows through neuroplasticity and makes it easier for you next time to do the things that you feel for whatever reason a resistance towards. And this is why I really appreciate it, and really thank you for sharing your examples, because these are all ways. There's so many ways where we can do this. And you said it perfectly. You had the physical part, you had the social part, like asking, like, talking to a girl or something like that. There are so many different ways to do this, and you did it on several levels. So now there are so many references you can call from that build you up, and this is what I meant before, which elevates your baseline. And so, coming back to my takeaways for today, this is definitely the thing I want to take away for me. We're like building up, and I'm not done. As you said, it's a journey, and I consciously make it an effort for me every single day to find another step, to challenge me in some other kind of way, to try something that I haven't tried before. And doesn't need to be a major thing, right? You don't need to jump from one building to the next right away. And you were building up to this point, right? And again, it's a journey. You're building up step by step, step by step. And I love actually how Tony says it, where like, a 2 millimeter shift. I think he used the golf example, where like 2 millimeters at the beginning over then, I don't know, like 50 yards is like a gigantic difference. And it's that this little shift every single day, like being 1% better every single day, truly makes a difference. And what I got to remember is to look back and not, using the past. Basically, I'm always saying like using the past in a positive way, where instead of like, oh, because this happened, no, I can't do this. Right now, I'm looking back to, fuck, look how far I've come. Like last year, 2 years ago, 5 years ago, look where I was back then. Or like in my case, 9 years ago, before I traveled the world, I shit my pants. I was so shy. Like in those last 9 years, it changed so much so that when I'm looking back, I'm feeling disassociated from this person. Like I know it was me, but I know it's an old version of me. That version is no longer there. And so this only comes from building myself up continuously and also realizing how far I'm coming, which also ties to what Tony says. We know you can't, what does he say? Well, with measurement, you can't control what you don't measure. Exactly. So measuring the process, looking where you're coming from. So same for you when you went to these events and now you're having this drop. Don't be like, oh man, whatever happens. No. How have you been before the event? How is it now? And really get some KPIs there so that you actually have a real reference. And then you can look into, okay, what is the part that I'm missing? What do I need to do now to move forward strategically? So that's my takeaway and my giveaway for today?
Wow, wow, that's just so much, right? The 2 millimeter ship, right? And the moving forward, and so many more golden drop that you have there. Oh man, I lost the counts actually. I love it. So as for me, oh, one more thing before I forget, for those of us that has been to Tony Robbins event and experienced the big state and also having a drop later on, and before or during your this is a tips by the way for you guys during the work of the deeper work. There's also opportunity for you to, I'd say, crewing at Tony Robbins, right? And in that way, it could help really to a certain point, getting back in there, getting into environment because well, not Tony Robbins event, but our environment, which is in our personal life, right? Just to make sure that you know that sometimes it could get harder for us, right? Because they do not follow the personal development as us. They kind of, yeah, well, they're different, right? And so it could really be harder for us to work on. So by crewing at Tony Robbins events, apply for that, you could help that more, right? Getting to the state, getting into the connection and all those things. So putting it out there, and continue the journey, as you yeah, as you travel, because in the end, you can do it, you can make it. It's matter of perseverance and are you going to finish strong? Man, I really love that part from Nick Voigt. Yeah. And as for me, the takeaway, I would say, as you were sharing, the finishing strong, that is so important. And also, what was the other one? Oh, the 2 millimeter ship, right? And I remember there was one more thing. I forgot to take note. Oh
Um,
man, yeah.
did you get
What?
it?
Hmm? One more thing. Oh yeah, I forgot about it now. So if I remember that, I'll be mentioning in a comment. But yeah, it's our journey. So thank you so much for sharing today, right? And thank you for being here. And yeah, I mean, yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
and I'm very curious. I mean, we talked a lot about our experiences that we had, and so I'm super curious. How is it for you guys? Like, as you were watching this, as you were listening to this, like, what are your stories about this? When did you get to an event? How did you feel? What happened after? How did you deal with that? I'm really curious to hear your stories, your insights, your thoughts about this, because I mean, at the end, we are all on this journey, right? And we all experience it a little bit differently. And I think collectively, then we can really help each other to level up, to build ourselves up, and to create this environment with another, which is why we really want you to engage with us, to send us comments, questions, whatever, because we don't do this for us. We do this podcast for you. So we want to co-create it with you. And this is a great part to do this. And you just said it perfectly, Huang, with the environment, because having this environment where even, like once a week you can connect to is such a tremendous help. And I know this because I created a mastermind 3 years ago, kind of, where we meet every week. We're all in the same space. We did the same events. We learned the same stuff. And it's so helpful to just reconnect to those, because as I'm traveling, I'm not always surrounded by those people. And having someone on the same path, understanding all these things, these techniques, is amazing when you really genuinely pursuing the path of building yourself up. So it's also one of the things I wanted to thank you for sharing this, because it's so important. Like, never underestimate your environment. With that being said, though, that's my take for me. I hope you got a lot out of this. I'm curious to hear your thoughts, and I'm out. The last thing I want to say is remember who you are.
And remember the power of creation you possess and have, guys. All right, take care and finish strong. See you later. Bye, guys.
Take care.